All right, guys. So diving into the load and lengthen mentality. This is a pillar that I originally wasn't going to include, but I think it's such an important piece of the mindset going into working on, especially tightness, stiffness, um, especially like places that were potentially injury prone when it comes to muscles, when it comes to lack of mobility. I find this particularly applicable when it comes to the hips, and muscles around the hips that tend to be tight. Essentially, what I'm getting at, a couple different things here. Tightness in the body is often a result of unidentified weakness, either directly at that source. So if I have tight hamstrings, it might be a direct result of having weak hamstrings, where my hamstrings are feeling tight because they're overly stretched and they don't have good muscle tone, muscle strength. And that might be a reason why I'm feeling that tightness, feeling that discomfort and potentially pain. That's a common thing that I'm addressing with people is, all right, if there's a source that we can go directly to and say, okay, this muscle feels tight, let's look at, really a lot of it is a history question. What have I done to strengthen that muscle versus what have I done that has stretched that muscle? Is there a balance that needs to be struck between the two? I think generally most people, when they have a tightness issue, simply have a weakness issue through a full range of motion. So what I want to do with that person is apply this load and lengthen mentality. Is I want to lengthen and I want to load. So can I start by, some warm up movements that take me through that range of motion first, like a toe touch, for example, which is it's a warm up I use for a lot of my clients. And then can I take them into, I'll use a specific example. I've been using the hamstrings. If your hamstrings are tight, one of the exercises I will use to improve their ability to build strength through a large range of motion over time is the Romanian deadlift. It's not specifically a stiff legged deadlift, but it's a deadlift where we're focusing primarily on hip movement at the hips rather than movement both at the hips and the knees, which is what we get our deadlift form from. And so that's an example of, we want to address that tightness through the load and lengthen mentality. Another component of this is, small stretches are going to do very little, but they can be helpful as a daily warm up. If you think about, when you pull on something, think of like a rope or, like a strap. When you're pulling on something, you're applying force to something. The same thing is true of your muscles, tendons, and joints. You are providing force, and that's why you have people such as dancers, gymnasts, who are very flexible and very strong. They are constantly providing, applying force through their body. They're doing it at more extremes than most people will or will need to. But the goal with these stretches is, all right, can we apply some force and then continue to, overload that? You take that progressive overload mindset and say, can we either one, use those small stretches, small daily movements as a means of just simply warming up for our day, but two, then taking it a step further and begin to, as we unlock mobility. So say our mobility looks like I can move from here to here, in a particular position. Now I want to take that and, from here to, I want to expand one, my range of motion through that movement, but two, now I want to build strength in my currently available range of motion. And then as my available range of motion expands, I want to start to build strength through that as well. And that's kind of the cycle that we get into of really, powerful changes to our mobility. We have to back it up with load, with force, with resistance, with weight. And so that is the way that we do that. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense for you guys. Hopefully you can understand the philosophy behind the load and lengthen mentality. And what I want to also say is, like, you want to work up to it. You don't want to just go straight into, a barbell deadlift barbell Romanian deadlift with no intro whatsoever, that's something you work your way into, using at first body weight, and then, like I said, exploring that range of motion first, then building on that with some heavier weights very slowly, very intentionally over time. And that's how we unlock that mobility and reduce stiffness and even reduce pain. On top of that, once you've kind of done those things, then you can build some serious resilience to injury, to pain, and that proves it's worth its weight in gold. When it comes to the work versus the payout, it's phenomenal when you see that happen for somebody. It's really cool to see. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. We're going to roll right into the next component, which is talking about weight management and when it is a factor in our pain, mobility, aches, exercise. So we'll talk through it.